What's up everyone, welcome back to another ski resort review video. We did Alta last time, let's talk about Snowbird. Snowbird is really one of my favorites. I said it about Alta, I'll say it again about the Bird. They're right next door to each other. The terrain is fantastic, the snow's great. We're gonna get into all that. Let's start with the terrain though. Similar to Alta, you've really got a lot of steep expert terrain from top to bottom at the Bird. I will say there is some beginner terrain to work with. You've got Baby Thunder, you've got Wilbur. You're gonna find greens and blues off of those lifts. Again, it's not that much, but if you are a beginner, there is some stuff to work with. Although I said it about Alta, I'll say it again about Snowbird. It's an expert's mountain. It's really catered towards the advanced and expert skier. I've seen families there. I've seen kids and inexperienced skiers and riders there before. It's not impossible. I wouldn't recommend it though. There's only really one lift. It's a tram that takes you from the bottom to the top of Snowbird, and that is the aerial tram. There's two of them. The lines can get lengthy there, but in the afternoon you can really get some awesome top to bottom laps in without any problems. So it varies the length of the lines at the tram, but it's an awesome ride up. It gives you access to basically the entire mountain, which is huge. Mineral Basin as well, which we'll talk about, and the terrain off there, especially the Cirque, is pretty fantastic. There's also the Peruvian lift at the bottom, which doesn't quite bring you as far up. It's a high-speed quad. Most of the lifts at Snowbird are high-speed. The Peruvian lift gives you some good terrain though. So you've got the Peruvian tunnel, which is a cool magic carpet actually. It's a tunnel that takes you through the mountain, quite literally, to the backside of Mineral Basin, which is an awesome zone of it's just an open bowl essentially with tons of advanced and also intermediate terrain. But the Peruvian lift also on the front side gives you a ton of options. Bump runs, trees, steeps, you name it. You've got a ton of vertical off that lift. It's not quite at the top of the mountain. It's not quite as high up as the tram is, but it gives you a lot of terrain and a lot of vertical as well. So a way to beat the crowds a little bit sometimes, the Peruvian lift, especially in the afternoon. People might be queuing up at the tram. If you're not in the mood for waiting in a line, you can hop in on the Peruvian chair and get a decent amount of vertical there. Moving towards the other side, you've got Gad Zoom, a lift that I actually didn't spend too much time in on my last visit to the Bird. I've been there a handful of times now. And Gad Zoom, it can get pretty crowded because it is the other base area over in Gad Valley. There's two main areas of Snowbird. I guess there's three. There's Gad Valley, which is Gad Zoom is the main chair over there. There's the Peruvian Gulch, which has the tram and the Peruvian chair, and then there's Mineral Basin. So Gad Zoom is the main lift in the Gad Valley area, and it's an express lift. Of course, most of the lifts there, I think I already said this, are express, which is nice. So Gad Zoom brings you up to not quite the top, but you can hop on Little Cloud, which does bring you to the top of Gad Valley. But again, even off Gad Zoom, I mean, there's a ton of like chutes, trees. There are some blues and greens, but I mean, I said it about Alta. I'll say it again about every zone at Snowbird. You could stay on Gad Zoom, you could stay on Peruvian all day and never ski the same thing twice. That is kind of the beauty of these resorts. Moving to the right of Gad Zoom, you've got Gad 2, which is honestly one of my favorite zones at Snowbird. I spent some time there this past week in late December, early January, working off the trees on Gad 2. Now, Gad 2 is definitely known for its gladed terrain. If you're a tree skier, definitely recommend checking it out. It never really gets too packed because it's the far looker's right of the mountain. Most people are spending their time at the tram, Mineral Basin especially. So Gad 2 might not see quite the traffic that other parts of the mountain do, which is nice. And if you like to ski trees, you're gonna love Gad 2 in the zone over there. Tiger Tail is a highlight run that we did. Some traversing over there for sure. If you're into that, you can traverse pretty far all the way to the boundary, and you can find, I bet on a powder day you could find some untouched snow. So similar with Alta, with Snowbird, there is some traversing you can do, some hiking you can do to sort of create your own destiny, find those untracked runs. If you're a powder hound, which a lot of people out there are, then you're gonna love what Snowbird has to offer, especially off Gad 2, because again, not as tracked out. It's pretty remote on the mountain, and there's a lot of tree terrain there. There's a lot of good snow. Even, I mean, we skied it the other week, and the snow wasn't that great. And Gad 2 had arguably some of the best snow on the mountain. So they've got some good terrain over there. So let's move over to Little Cloud, the other lift in the Gad Valley area. There's also Baby Thunder. I haven't really skied much off there. It's a lower mountain lift. Doesn't get you a ton of terrain. But Little Cloud is basically a bowl you've got off Little Cloud. It brings you right to the top, pretty similar level to the tram. You can access the Cirque off of Little Cloud, which we can talk about in a second. But really, you've got a nice bowl to work with immediately. Regulator Johnson, I think that's a groomed black diamond. If you go right off the lift, you'll find some ungroomed bowl terrain. You've also got Road to Provo, which is a really popular sort of bowl. It's a blue traverse that takes you into this other bowl, the Rasta Chutes, Knucklehead Traverse, and some runs off there. A lot of bowl terrain at Snowbird, and Little Cloud gives you access to that. I will say we skied it not on a great day, couldn't really see that well, but on a Bluebird day it'd be fantastic. I've skied it on a Bluebird POW day, Road to Provo, and it's pretty popular. People are fighting to get to the untracked snow at the end of that traverse. So popular zone, but a great steep open bowl zone. Moving over to Mineral Basin, the backside of Snowbird. This really sets Snowbird apart. They've got amazing terrain on the front side. The backside at Mineral is just, first of all, it's stunning. I mean, the views are awesome. There's two lifts over there. There's the Mineral chair and there's the Baldy chair. The Baldy chair gives you access to Alta. So we stayed at Alta. We would come up and dip into Mineral every time we wanted to access Snowbird. It's pretty easy going both ways. They're both express quads, the Mineral chair and the Baldy chair. They bring you to slightly different places. Mineral Basin is the more crowded lift by far. It gives you a lot more vertical, a lot more terrain options. So it does get pretty crowded. I would say it's probably the most popular area on the mountain, especially on a Bluebird day. It sees the sun a lot. I mean, it was like 20 something degrees. It felt like 40 when we were there the other week. I mean, we were cooking in the line at Mineral Basin. It gets hot, honestly. It gets pretty warm. The sun is just cooking it all day. You're gonna find some soft, slushy snow there. We found a lot of variable snow. We found, again, not a great snow week when we were there, but some of the snow at the top of Mineral held up pretty well. I have to say, it was soft enough to really, charge and get an edge. It wasn't too icy, wasn't too crunchy. As you move down, it definitely got crunchier. So, you're gonna find variable terrain there. I mean, on a powder day, it'd be fantastic. On a Bluebird POW day, because I don't think you'd be able to see much on a storm day. Mostly blacks, some blues. Definitely another expert zone, as you'd kind of expect. But just great terrain, stunning views, open bowls. If you're a bowl skier, you're gonna love Mineral. You're gonna love Snowbird in general. But it is pretty awesome. But I will say it sees a lot of traffic, even on non-POW days. It's a crowded area. When the sun's out, people are in Mineral Basin, and rightly so. I mean, it's a fantastic place to ski. I would say the Baldy lift is kind of a hack for beating the lines, but you're not quite getting the vertical. And when we were there, the snow wasn't as good off of Baldy. I have to say the snow was better off of Mineral. You'll find some baked snow for sure. I mean, we were skiing slush, we were skiing crunchy snow, we were skiing chalky snow. All of the above at Mineral Basin and at Snowbird in general. That's just how it works at these big mountains. But yeah, Mineral Basin sees a lot of traffic, but fantastic terrain. On a Bluebird day, you really can't beat it. Let's come back over to the front side. Let's talk about High Baldy a little bit. I've only skied this once. I did it on my last day on January 2nd this year. And it was fantastic. I loved it. It's an easy boot pack. So you can access it off of the tram or Mineral, because they both take you to the top. And you sort of traverse over a little bit down past the Cirque, sort of on Chip's Run, and then you go over the, it's above the Peruvian chair. And it's about an 8-minute boot pack. I had a backpack, so it was even easier for me. But I saw people doing it without backpacks. And you hike along this ridge, and then you traverse sort of as far as you want. I skied a run called Thanks for the Memories, which was sort of an open, shaded run, some trees around there. Ended up in some gullies. It was fantastic. Again, the snow wasn't amazing, it wasn't powder, but it stayed nice and chalky. It was firm, but not icy. And the terrain off High Baldy looked awesome. Some of it sees the sun, so be wary of that. When we were there, definitely wasn't worth skiing that. It would have been too sunbaked and frozen over and sunbaked. You know how that works. But the terrain off High Baldy, it's kind of a sleeper, honestly. There wasn't too many tracks up there and not too moguled out. So if you're up for a boot pack, High Baldy is definitely an option, and a good option, because they've got steep blacks and double blacks off there they just don't see as much traffic. So High Baldy, wanted to touch on that. Really good zone. Let's talk about my favorite area at Snowbird, the Cirque. I've skied it when there's POW. I've skied it when there's, rocks and chalk and crust. I love it every time I ski it. I really do. It's just iconic. I haven't done every run off there, but I have done a handful. And you access it off of the tram, or off Little Cloud or Mineral, any of those lifts that take you to the top. And it's just steep fall line open skiing. I mean, it's awesome. Varying levels of steepness. I think not any, but don't be too put off by the steepness of a run like Great Scott. There are other steeper or less steep runs that might be easier to ski, but it's worth checking out if you're up for a traverse, and if you're up for some steep fall line skiing. The Cirque is awesome. When we were there wasn't a lot of cover. Some runs that I was shocked that were open and were pretty rocked out at the top and tough to get into. So we kept going down to the middle Cirque area, which was a little just tamer and easier to get to. But the traverse was pretty pebbly, pretty rocky. They just needed more cover. But I've been there when there is more cover, and it's pretty sweet. It's a popular area for sure, but rightly so, because it's just, again, steep, open fall line skiing that it's kind of what the Bird's all about, really. It sort of encapsulates it in one sort of zone, I think. So the Cirque, some highlight runs. Great Scott is a famous one. Silver Fox. There's Middle Cirque. You could go all the way down towards the lower Cirque and Glens and Tower 3. I haven't been quite to the bottom there, but I skied Middle Cirque last time, and it's just great. It really is. The snow held up well. Again, the snow was not great last time I visited, and on the Cirque, there weren't many people going on there. It was pretty firm, but it was pretty chalky. It definitely wasn't icy, and you could really kind of grip it and rip it. So it's fun. It's really, really fun for experts to check out. I would recommend doing the Cirque if you're up for a traverse. Again, it's not the easiest to get to. Some of the upper Cirque runs are, but it does require some traversing. It can get bumpy. It can get a bit rocky. I mean, my skis got pretty wrecked, honestly, popping through there on a early season day when they only had, they still have 150 inches of snow this year. So, but it does need cover. So just be mindful of that. Talk to patrol if you're unsure. But the Cirque is worth checking out if you're up for some steep skiing. Let's touch on the snow a little bit. I think I've hit on every major terrain zone. Similar to Alta, if you've watched that video, the snow's fantastic. I've skied it on bad and good days, but I mean, if you haven't looked into the numbers, Snowbird and Alta see more snow on average than just about anyone in the United States. In North America, for that matter, too. Bar probably Alaska. But they're kind of in the league of their own. So snow's fantastic. Snow quality is fantastic. It's light, it's dry. It's that Utah powder, if you're not familiar with it. It's pretty good. Beats Colorado, in my opinion, but if you're a Colorado guy, fair enough. But it's fantastic. I've done cat skiing there, and the powder is just phenomenal. I've done resort skiing there. It's awesome. You really can't beat, in my opinion. Again, it's all about opinions. This is just what I think. I think it's tough to beat overall with the terrain, with the snow quality, with the levels of snow, the ease to get to, for me at least. It's pretty tough to beat. Pretty tough to beat the Bird. So it's definitely one of my favorites, along with Alta. They're right next door. You can go from one to the other easily if you have an Icon Pass or an Alta Bird Pass, or Mountain Collective, I think is the other one. Snowboarders are allowed at Snowbird. They're not at Alta, so be wary of that. they won't let you in, I guess. I've never really tried because I don't snowboard, but I've seen somebody snowboard down Alta at the end of the day, which is kind of weird because you'd think they'd be parked at Snowbird. But anyway, let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns down in the comments section below. Leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one.